we're going to move on to our next topic, which sprung up this weekend in Michigan. Northville High's boys program raced at Region 0601 recently, and they finished 3rd overall, qualifying for state. Woo!
Congrats!
Get the states!
Yes,
all right,
I love it.
Hold up. Nah,
okay.
Officials get together, they say a couple of the boys were wearing different undergarments.
Yeah.
DQ right there.
Were they wearing bun huggers?
They were not wearing bun huggers, but they were wearing different colors of undergarments, and that's a big situation because they raced really well. They want to get to state. They're appealing it right now with the Michigan High School Association. We're going to try to get these guys on the phone and talk to them a little about it.
Giving them a call right now. You know, that is tricky with these situations. Every state's a little different. You have an FHS rule. Every state has their own undergarment rules, especially this time of year. You're talking about Michigan. You can't just run in the short shorts and singlets anymore. You got to have some extra layers on. It's probably one of those hotly debated topics in just about every state. It seems like these rules are always in flux. They're always changing. One year you can implement one thing, and next year it completely flips, and you're talking about something else. But here we go. We're about to hear it.
We're on the phone with Nick Kurahumikijan of Northville. I'm sorry, Nick. I got that name wrong.
That's okay.
All right. But obviously, you're a junior with Northville, and we already kind of discussed what you were going through with the DQ from this weekend. Can you explain to us right now what the Northville team is going through to try to get that qualifier back?
Yes, so this weekend we were qualified for wearing different colored shirts under our jerseys, and part of the reason was that it was high 30s, low 40s in terms of temperature and degrees Fahrenheit. So we were bundled up, and so going into the appeal, sorry, that was your question. So we put together a formal appeal, our coach and our athletic director, to the MHSAA, and we sent that out, I believe, today. And also our parents have sent out emails to them as well, and we're just doing everything we can do possible to overturn their ruling. And a lot of it has to do with trying to get support from the running community as well. So we're reaching out to as many sources as possible.
One of the big points to this story is that on race day, you know, the officials kind of went over the race starting line procedure, and, you know, they talked to the team, but they didn't really mention your warm-ups or your undergarments as one of the rules. So, you know, technically, you know, the rules state that you have to get a warning first before DQ. So what kind of happened with there, do you think?
Right. So part of our appeal is we have two main arguments with our appeal. And our first main argument is that in the rules you're supposed to be given a warning by an official prior to disqualification if you're breaking any of the rules in terms of uniform code. So that's our main appeal, because during the check-in process, they came up to us and they explained all the rules, but they failed to explain that rule, and then they also failed during check-in to give us a warning had we broken the rule. So that's our number one main point for our appeal.
2 years ago, Northville's girls program had a situation. They qualified for NXN for the first time in Michigan history, and were not denied that bid from the Michigan High School Association until parents formed a legal lawsuit against it, you know, kind of forcing their hand. So do you feel like there's a situation where, you know, something could happen, you might have to do something more on top of that in terms of a lawsuit or anything around there?
I believe that in terms of just the sheer time issue, I don't think we have time to go the legal route. We are using all the resources possible in order to form our dispute and to properly put together arguments, but we're not considering a legal route as of right now, just because our next Saturday. So we only have 5 days to get all of our arguments out to MHSA and get a ruling.
All right, well, Nick, we will be in touch. We'll figure out what happens from here on out. But thank you for sharing your story, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye. So this is a dicey situation.
Yeah, man, Northville just can't catch a break here, coming from NXN to this. You know, it seems like they're always at the heart of it. It's a really tough situation for these athletes. You know, you're trying to just put yourself in the best possible position to run well in this race, compete at your championship. and the officials don't quite always communicate in the best possible way. So for these athletes, that's out of your mind now. You're going to the start line assuming everything is okay, and then to have this happen after the race is just such a blow to these kids' season.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, you know, it's a huge blow, and I don't want to take anything away from what they did. Obviously, they're very accomplished, but like to me, you know, that's somewhat on a coaching perspective. A coach should know, like, hey guys, like we have to all be matching in uniform. Like we all can't, you can't have blue, you can't have orange, and I have yellow. Like it just doesn't work like that. Like that's been a written rule in the rule book for years and years and years. Like since I've been running cross country back in high school, I know one of the big things was we always had to match. And if we weren't matching, we weren't running. You had to match. Like and even in college, it's in the rule books everywhere throughout cross country. So you know, for that to kind of, and I understand the conditions, the cold conditions, making you have to wear more gear and you know extra layers. But for this situation, man, that's a really hard place for these guys.
And it's definitely understanding. It's a good rule. Like if we didn't have this rule, we'd have people or kids wearing whatever the heck they want to wear under their jerseys. So it is a good rule.
Right.
But the problem I think is enforcement of this rule. Not all officials enforce the same rules. Sometimes this happens in other meets, and then you can pick and choose and say, hey, this didn't happen here. So that's where the issue stems from. You know, they're basically being set as an example because they did this, right? I talked to the Michigan High School State Association this morning, and they said to me that, you know, they held the appeal on site, and after the appeal, you can't really do much from there. So I don't know what happens with Northville from here, but it just seems like they got a tough break.
You know, I was a track and cross country official before coming down here. Shout out to the Section 4 crew, Steve Baxter. You guys do a great job out there up in New York. And this is always one of the things that we talk about the most in all our preseason meetings when we'd all sit down, all the officials, we'd go over our meetings, go over all the new rules, everything needed to be implemented. The uniform rules are always one of the ones that you went over the most because there can be some potential gray area depending on the length of the uniform. Everything varies a little bit. And so it's emphasized that we knew it in and out, everything that was going on in there, and being able to communicate that to coaches. The coaches do need to be on top of this. Coming to this point of the season, you would hope that this wouldn't be a problem. Maybe early on these things happen, whether, you know, for whatever reason. But right at this point, and the officials too, you got to be aware of that. I think you have to be out in front of this to be able to give those athletes some fair warning where it's easy to go back and say, well, that was that. You know, if you're going up there and talking as athletes, same thing we would do, whether it's cross country or track. When the kids come to start line for cross country meet, we'd go around the line and say, hey, you got to switch that out real fast. You know, like there has to be some back and forth. The officials, I think it's their responsibility to make sure these athletes can compete. And if that means they have to switch something up last minute, it's what you got to do. It's not a deal. But if you're not communicating that as an official, I don't think you're doing your job well.
Yeah, for one thing, it's just the last thing. It's a huge statement made by the officials in Michigan because, you know, when I talked to the spokesperson at the state association, they said in his 30 years, you know, working with cross country and track and field, he's almost never dealt with this at all at this level, you know, and especially because there's a state qualifying bid on the line too. You're taking a lot of opportunity away from kids who earned it. So I don't know. It's you know, it's a rule, but is it the right rule? Let us know on Facebook or on Twitter. Let us know, you know, what your thoughts are. We would love to hear them as we dig further into this discussion.